Bill? Bill? Do you want to say anything to me? Bill?
Dad. Dad. Daddy?
And number 36, the Iron Bulls, Bill Pellington.
I'm your son, Mark. Do you remember me?
Bill Pellington was a big, badass football player, but he was also a sweet, gentle, funny father.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone that has made this day just the most memorable thing in my whole life. And I'd like to thank all the fans in Baltimore for having me over all these years and honoring me today.
The story is pretty legendary, but true, that he hitchhiked with the spikes over his shoulder and his suitcase in his hand and hitchhiked to Westminster, Maryland.
And on April the 18th, 1953, a little 2-inch newspaper column announced the signing of Baltimore's Bill Pellington.
He was really there as football became America's #1 sport. He was the captain, linebacker with a defensive unit, Gino Marchetti, Artie Donovan, Big Daddy Lipscomb. On offense, they had Raymond Berry and Johnny U. In his last 2 years, he was player coach when Don Shula was the coach. Don Shula was the Bill Belichick of his era. They won the 1958 and 59 championship games against the Giants, and 58 game, the greatest game ever played, the first sudden death game and the game that really ushered pro football into the modern television era. I think he played many games with a cast on his hand and would wallop people in the side of the head and crack their helmet open. He would show up at my games and be there as this strong presence of leadership, but he wasn't touchy-feely. He wasn't like, hey, let's talk about your issues. It was a different time. To me, my father was just a guy who worked with his hands, whether it was a head slap or a forearm shiver, buckling his chin strap, shaking your hand later, pouring a glass of beer. That's what he did. The defender in professional football uses every weapon at his disposal, even the pads that protect his hands. These are the raiments of the gladiator. Is that supposed to be remnants? My dad was known as a dirty player. He goes, I was never dirty, I was tough. The irony is he played the game and he certainly developed Alzheimer's from head trauma. Certainly. You don't get Alzheimer's at 60 without some sort of brain trauma. The padding in my dad's helmet that he retired with, I mean, it's the plastic shell, it's ear things, it's one thing down the middle. It is not the wrapped armor that it is now. In 1989 is when we first started noticing that my father was becoming a little forgetful. You hear about people with Alzheimer's sometimes like, I have the disease, I know it is, hey, I have this is coming, and then they retreat into the thing. This was like, he was behind the screen door, behind frosted glass, and I could never get in.
You know what's happening, Dad?
What?
Do you know what's going on? To you? You don't know, do you?
And I remember being in a motel room, and at 2:30 in the morning, the phone rang, and I pick up the phone, and it was my brother, and he said, Dad has passed away. And I remember my brother picking me up at the airport, and we're in the car, turning on WBAL, former Baltimore Colt, Bill Pellington, passed away. The 40-minute ride from the airport was testimonials from people that knew my dad, and I hadn't even gotten home yet. When you're robbed of, your fourth quarter, it's heartbreaking. And when your father's taken away before you've really become a man, what are you gonna do? You have to get up, you have to live. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think of him. And I certainly see him. I see him all the time because the number 36 is an icon in my head. And I see 36s. And I always use that as like, hey, Billy, how you doing? And that's him kind of just telling me he's there, telling me he's keeping an eye out for me. I'll never forget, I think what made me really love Jennifer more than anything is when she came to Baltimore and she met my dad. His eyes lit up because she was beautiful and she was just so sweet with him. I felt a great strength and growth going forward, as I also, as a man, felt it getting married, having a child after my dad died. That's really when I moved to California and really jumped into getting out of being this 20-something MTV video collagist and kind of said, let's see what it's like to be a storyteller. My first movie, Going All the Way, my second movie, Arlington Road, third movie, Mothman Prophecies. In between, would do a bunch of videos, Bruce Springsteen, Dave Matthews, post-Jeremy music videos that I think continued to cement my reputation in that world. The experience of working with an artist of the magnitude and impact of Bruce Springsteen is by far in my top 5 creative professional experiences, and is definitely, I think, on the DNA level, kind of connected to my dad. When Jennifer passed away in 2004, I was severed, cut in two. It's like you're two people that form a new person, which you truly do. It's unmistakably, undeniably the biggest challenge that I have ever faced. I would talk to my dad, and it was just keep going. It was just hold on, really to survival. And I sure remembered wishing that he was around. I remembered wishing that he was alive, and it certainly would have helped me. And my whole nature of what movies I wanted to make and what art I wanted to make and who I was fundamentally changed. My 40s were basically healing from this devastating loss and coming to terms with stuff about my dad and stuff in my childhood that now, I feel like now I'm ready to live the second life.
And go, not too fast, and action.
If he wants to be a football player or a baseball player, fine. If he doesn't, that's his decision.
Are there any problems in the neighborhood with youngsters this age, with you fellas being professional athletes?
No, not really, I don't believe, except that the kids like to get out there and play all the time, and of course he loves to do it, so let him go at it.
This is like sports, right? I'm following the blocking. I know that's motion.
In this business, a business of rejection, of actors saying no, people saying no, how strong you just need to stay strong. It reaffirms to me that I am Bill Pellington's son, fighter, truth-seeking, that kind of tenacity or ferocious perseverance definitely comes from him.